think having that, these meetings, all these different meetings, I think it's such a valuable resource for people that they can just, pick one that resonates with them or pick a bunch that resonate with them and just go and get support in whatever way. It is this beautiful thing to, the people who have newly shifted or they shifted a while ago, but they haven't had that support. It's just such a beautiful thing to have them in the community because it's hard to express, but it's so beautiful. It's like a glow.
Yeah, you connect people together and, they spark.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, Amy.
Hello.
So wonderful to meet you.
Yes, likewise.
And thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Yes, well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is just such a wonderful opportunity to spread the word about Perfectly Okay. So
yes, that's why we are here to talk about Perfectly Okay community and what's going on there.
Yes.
But before we start, well, the podcast is called Awakening Now. And for a lot of different people, it means different things. So I would like to know your definition or how you see it. What is awakening? What is awakening from? To? What's going on?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And it's interesting because having been in this community, the Perfectly Okay community, since 2016, I've had the privilege of being present for so many different forms of awakening. And it's been the most splendid opportunity. So it's difficult to encapsulate in a single definition, having witnessed so many of such diversity of ways. So, but I think maybe the most broad definition would be a fundamental shift in the core of being, if that makes sense, right? It's like there seems to be something that apparently fundamentally changes. And it could be from a sense of suffering to a lack of suffering, or to a sense of being, I am a separate self, to, oh, no, there's no separation. I am everything and there's nothing, right? Or just, a sense of always feeling anxious and nervous and caught up in thoughts, to maybe a sense of separation from thoughts, a distance from thoughts that gradually, slowly becomes the sense of just all pervasive peace. And then I think there's probably about 10,000 other ways to define it, but I think those are probably some good ways.
Fundamental shift sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then it's interesting because sometimes there's the experience of it happened and it just gets so normalized that it just seems like, did anything really ever shift? Was there any other way of being before this, whatever this is? So, yeah, and it's really interesting because there's a memory of something apparently was different before, but it's just that is so inaccessible. It's like, is there really anything different? But I think, shift seems to be a really good word, and fundamental, because it's so deep.
Yeah.
That's how it changes. Yes.
Yeah, it cannot go unnoticed, basically.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Although it's interesting because we've had, various people in the Perfectly Okay community where they don't notice that there's actually been a change until it kind of hits them. Like there's some experience where it's like, oh, wait, I'm not reacting like I did before, or something like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm not suffering, or, oh, the mind isn't spinning out like it used to be, or I'm not getting grabbed by the thoughts. And there's not a realization that, oh, something did really fundamentally shift, until all of a sudden there's oh yeah, that's in the rearview mirror. Something did shift, but I didn't realize it until now. So yeah, I think that's, beautiful.
Yeah, it's so true. For some people, it's like a lightning bolt from the clear sky. For other people, it's so slow, like that frog that doesn't even notice when it's boiled.
Yes. Oh yeah, the poor frog. that's a very good way of characterizing it.
Yeah, still. Could you share a little bit what happened in your life, in your story?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's sort of a long story because I think it started when I was a little kid. And there was kind of like a sense of having the rug pulled out from under me. And this was like things that I believed in strongly, like my parents, religion, yeah, all sorts of like even just silly things like, oh, Santa Claus or whatever. Like those things all of a sudden were seen to be, oh no, those are just fiction. Like these are just made up by people. And that was really disturbing. I was maybe 8 at the time, maybe who knows how old I really was, but I think I was 8, and it was so disturbing that I kind of entered like this year-long thing of like depression, I guess. I didn't know it was depression, but I just every night before I'd go to bed, I just lie down and I was like, I don't want to exist anymore.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to exist anymore. And I was an insomniac. I guess I didn't really sleep very much as a kid. So I would just imagine myself no longer existing, like sinking into the earth and like rotting. I apparently was a little morbid. And then that just happened for a year. And then afterwards, I think I was a little bit of a prolific reader, I guess. Like I read a lot of books. And I read a bunch of books by Kurt Vonnegut. And he kind of has this absurdist view of the world. And for me, I realized like, oh, it doesn't have to be tragic. It can just be hilarious and light and free. And even if there's this tragedy of losing my worldview, it's okay. And then I think that was kind of the key to like this lifetime of really just diving into various things like, fear and anger, sadness, and like being able to get really released from those emotions, I guess, like just by really diving deep into them and just really coming up with this really high sense of well-being. Maybe by the time I was in my 30s, every day was awesome.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so interesting because it's not many people that see that in childhood.
Yeah. And then
mostly it's already like the second half of life.
Yeah. And there wasn't really any like big, because I was still a person there. Even though that person was very happy, there was still a very strong sense of I am a separate being. I am this Amy, and there's the world out there. And the world and I are buddies because we have fun together in this absurd reality. But then I think I kind of hit a wall where it's like I could only kind of go so far with that ego. And I think I just got into a lot of trouble, quote unquote, because I was just overcommitted and, not really reflecting on like, are these really the things that actually resonate? Are these really the important things? I was more focused on the material things, I guess, like achievements, etc. And then I started getting interested in like meditation, and I'm kind of a very modern meditator, I guess, or modern spiritual seeker. Or I was, because like, oh, I just listen to podcasts. Look at these apps. And then I learned about the Finders course, which is, why Perfectly Okay exists, which was saying that it was a 17-week research-based course that would teach meditation and teach techniques in order to awaken, whatever that meant. I didn't really know what that meant. To lead to that fundamental shift. And as more of a scientifically based person, I thought, oh, research-based, that sounds wonderful. And so I took the course and did the techniques, continued to practice after the course ended. And then one day I was writing an email and I was looking inside to say, oh, what do I think about this thing that we're discussing in the email? What do I think? And then I realized there was no one there. It was just like, oh, this is what they mean by the self is gone. There's like just emptiness there. And there was, no sense of separation anymore. And it was like consciousness expanded to like the universe or whatever. And it was very confusing for a long time.
Okay.
And it was very wonderful. But yeah, so I think that would be like, that was kind of the second big shift, because that was definitely a sense of like having been a very strong doer to just nothing, just stillness.
Yeah, that's the shift.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess that's the main story, I guess, is like that shift. And then I joined it was called the Explorers course, which is about maybe 50 people. And it was this sequel to the Finders course. And it was supposed to kind of help people deepen, and it was just very experimental. And there was really no way to interact very much with the other people who were taking the course. We could use like this very crude message board because it was 2016. And yeah, there's really no way except maybe emailing each other. Then there was suggestion that, oh, maybe just make small groups together to do practices together. And then I'll just segue into how did Perfectly Okay start?
Yes, that's the interesting part.
Yes, because two people, John Conaway and Patty Levin, got the idea, I guess, individually, like, oh, instead of just doing practices together, let's just have these open meetings where we can just all talk about what's going on and what's not going on, like the weird changes that happen. And so we all started meeting in these random groups, and everyone just found it to be so magical. It was just so wonderful to be able to just talk. And we use Zoom like we're using now. And it was like the crude early version of Zoom. But yeah, it was great because we were all just sitting in these little boxes together and sharing. And it was so like deepening and enriching, and also normalizing the changes that were happening with us all. And also was giving us an opportunity to support, people who maybe hadn't had that fundamental shift yet, to kind of, just offer, not necessarily like as a teacher, like this is what you should do. It's just like, oh, this is what worked for me. So yeah, so that was the magic. And then there was initially 5 meetings a week, and I was one of the hosts on Friday, 9:30 Pacific, of the open discussion. That meeting still goes on every Friday.
Wow, sweet.
8 years later. Yes. Yeah. And there was something that magic of being able to meet and be in these meetings with people and just having it just free flow. And then the community started expanding like concentric rings of a tree, I guess, where we just got these 50. Oh, let's let in friends and family. Okay, let's invite people, anyone who's graduated from this online course, anyone, even if they haven't taken this other course, just let's let them in. And then we just started, opening the doors to other communities too. And that's been more recent, and it's just been so wonderful. I've had, like new people coming through the open discussion, and it's just so wonderful to have like these fresh perspectives and this wonderful curiosity, which is just so, so wonderful. And so, yeah, I think that's how Perfectly Okay began and throve. What's the past tense of thrive? Thrived?
Still thriving, isn't it?
Yes, it's still thriving. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think now we have about 80 online meetings a week.
A week?
So a week,
wow,
yes.
That's a lot, a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So it grew from 2 with Patty and John to 5. And then now it's 80. Literally 80.
Oh, and how many people are in the community at the moment?
I think Patty emailed us saying that she had just registered the 2,300th member. So we have 2,300 people.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So you like a gravitational pull for all these other communities also to come into this perfectly okay, because you offer so much, like different teachers and different topics, and it's incredible.
Yes, it is because I serve on the organizational committee. There's 4 of us. There's Patty Levin, Concha McKnight, David Kennedy, and myself. And so we've been serving as this organizational community for maybe since 2020. And before that, it was John Conaway and Patty Levin. They kind of did everything. And it's just so wonderful because our philosophy is just letting it be organic, right? It's not a pyramid structure. We're organizing things, but we're really just, serving the community. And the philosophy is we don't ask people to do meetups necessarily. It's like people ask each other to do meetups, and people get inspired to do their own meetups. And so I think that's how we've gotten the 80 different ones is because, people just feel inspired. They say, oh, I've got something to offer. And so they offer it, and they email Patty, and Patty says, we'll run it by the committee. And we're always like, yes, go for it. And yeah, it's just wonderful. I was in anticipation of this. I was looking at all the meetups, and I was just like, my goodness, there's such diversity of meetups. There's a bunch of practice-based ones, like stuff that people did in the Finders course, and then its sequel course, the 45-day course. There's like those core practices that people are able to do together, and people just host these practices together. Like there's one called group awareness, another one called subtle noting. There's inquiry, and they're all kind of putting their own spins on it, like coming up, innovating, and inviting people to come and share. And then actually not a lot, but several of our more recent core session speakers have started meetups with us. So now they've started hosting meetups with us, which is wonderful. So they offer something in the core session, and they resonate with the community, and the community resonates with them, and then they start offering meetups based on what they're bringing, their specialty. So yeah, so it's really wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. It's like the answer to a lot of questions for people who are sitting at home and don't know how to connect or who to talk to.
Oh, yes, that's a good question. We're at itsperfectlyok.org. And I think I sent you you probably know the link, but I think I sent it to you. So it's just like, one word, perfectly okay with OKAY.org. And that brings us to our landing page. And there's a bunch of little links you can click on. It is Patty who registers people for the community. And so just look for the name Patty, click on that, and you can email her and join the community. So, and and again, it's so exciting to have new members because there's really this recognition that with the community, like the diversity of experience, that's what deepens us all, right? That what helps us to all shift. And also it's not about just shifting, right? It's not about just we shift and then, it's actually about deepening too, right? And stabilizing and integrating. Because after things change, it can just be weird.
That's true. And it just gets weirder and weirder.
It does just get weirder and weirder. Yes, exactly. And so I think having that, these meetings, all these different meetings, I think it's such a valuable resource for people that they can just, pick one that resonates with them. Or pick a bunch that resonate with them and just go and get support in whatever way.
And do these meetings go all day long? Like there are different time zones, right?
Yeah. There's different, because we really are, I think, an international community. I think our skew is that it's all like mainly English speaking based. But there's, I guess, English is becoming more and more of like a universal language, I guess, for whatever reason. American movie propaganda, I don't know. But Yeah. Yeah, most of the meetups are in English. There is one Japanese language based meetup. And I think there was a German language based meetup as well, but I'm not sure if it's still running. I couldn't find it on the calendar. But the beauty is if people have other languages and they want to meet up in that language, they can start it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you have a Zoom account that accommodates like thousands of people at the same time.
Yes, yeah. Patty, I think it's her Zoom account. And I think she's gotten, because that's the amazing thing, like as our community has evolved, Zoom has somehow synchronistically evolved as well. Because I remember very early on, the max was 50. We could only have 50 people in one room, in one Zoom room. And we had a speaker up very early on that everyone wanted to see. And everyone showed up early, and then it was maxed out. And the speaker could not get into the room because it was maxed out. And so we had to have a person volunteer to leave so that the speaker could come. So that was way back when. And now it's, thousands, 10,000s, who knows how many, maybe there'll be like billions at some point.
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. But so Zoom has evolved, and it's wonderful because I think I sort of we mentioned that you've been doing core sessions with us, which is we're so grateful. The core sessions are they're more, I guess, more focused on bringing in people outside the community and bringing things that might help our community in whatever way, right? It's like the focus, of course, is shifting, deepening, integrating, normalizing. And so we have people who, like our members, will suggest like various teachers and say, oh, this person would be great. And then as the organizing committee, we look and say like, okay, does this feel like they could offer something wonderful to our community? And the answer is almost always yes. So then we have these, the core sessions are on Saturday and Sunday. Every week we've been running them, I think since 2019, maybe. And really so it's not a weekly meetup, it's a special thing. And it's really just a way, again, to kind of connect people with something that might be useful for them, which I think is really wonderful.
It totally is. And I really enjoyed being able to share with your community. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And I already had 3 sessions, and now I'm just getting new ideas, and my ideas are big.
Yes.
We have this Liberation Unleashed community that is so focuses helping people to see through the illusion of separate sound on a forum in a writing format. But as everything evolved, I moved away from forum into live sessions with people, and I work one-on-one, and I do monthly group meetings, just like just like that. And the problem is in our community is that the aftercare or this deepening is not so organized. We don't have that structure like you do. And I think, wow, why not to bring these people who just had a shift into this platform and let them explore not just our Liberation Unleashed meetings, but there are so many more meetings, whoever wants what. I think that would be amazing.
Yes, I totally agree. That would be amazing. Yeah, it's just because it's such this beautiful time, right? Like after the shift has happened, it's such a beautiful experience, I guess. I don't know. The languaging is so hard because, the language is so loaded, right? If you say, oh, experience, who's experiencing? Well, yeah, there's just nothing. But it is. So I'll just say for convenience, it's a beautiful
things to take care of. Sure.
Yes. But it is this beautiful thing to, the people who have newly shifted, or they shifted a while ago, but they haven't had that support. It's just such a beautiful thing to have them in the community, because it's hard to express, but it's so beautiful. It's like a glow.
Yeah, you
A
connect people
glove.
together and, they spark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it seems like there is, and this is just based on just complete fabrication, but it seems like there's a higher chance that if there's not that support, of maybe that shift doesn't maybe take root.
Who knows?
Who knows? At least
Yeah,
that,
there are many, many traps to fall into,
yeah,
and ideas stack and get stuck. And well, it's all
yeah,
moving on its own way and its own pace, and everything is right. But
yeah.
having that support is always very beneficial.
Yes, yeah. And I based that on because we had an experience like kind of earlier on in the community of, I think what Ciunaite calls I got it, I lost it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where there's kind of this dipping in and out of that shift experience. And there's, I think, maybe a lot of stories that can be made around, oh, I got it, I lost it. What does that mean? And that kind of draws the experience back into maybe the pre-shift or something. Um, yeah. And so I think that being able to communicate with people who've, oh, they're deeper in whatever that's their shift happened a long time ago and they've been through this, and being able to normalize, it's like, yeah, that happens, that's normal. A lot of people go through that. Not everyone goes through that, but a lot of people do go through that, and that's okay. It doesn't have to have a meaning, right? You don't have to make a meaning. You don't have to bring the mind back and make a meaning out of it. It can just be a thing that's happening and not happening at the same time. So but yes, oh, that's so exciting. That's such a great idea.
Because now
About
we
having,
are talking about how to give a better service for people who just saw it. And we don't have a structure like this. We have some meetings. There are guides that they organize their own meetings 4 times a week or something. Like, it's a lot. And yeah, before we used to go on Facebook and do, Facebook groups, but everything changes, and that also played its part, and played out, and now it's a time to connect face to face. Before, people used to be very scared to go on camera.
yeah, it's amazing. And I think, yeah, maybe the pandemic changed that. I'm not sure, where people just, they got used to just being on camera with each other, and that became normalized. And they realized, like, oh, yeah, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's one interesting thing is that I had work colleagues who were doing Zoom, and they would speak of like some sort of like Zoom fatigue, where they would be in meetings and they would say like, oh, but I get so tired being in a Zoom room with people. It's so terrible. And I was like, what? It's like amazing to be on Zoom with people. It's so beautiful. So, but I think that maybe it's just a different context. But yeah, so that's very cool, because you were like the OG, perhaps, like connecting people online,
Well,
right?
we are helping individuals to go through that shifting.
Yeah, but you had the forum for a long time, right?
Yes, but see, on the forum, it's one-on-one. There's
Okay.
a seeker, client, and a
Yes, a
guide,
client.
and they have a conversation until it plays out. In whichever way it ends, either somebody comes in and sees it, or they drop away because not ready, or for whatever reason. And after that, we add them to Facebook group, but it's not so much help these days. There used to be lively groups, and we used to have various groups. But at the moment, I think, everyone changes, and the mindset are changing. And there's so much information online in all different formats that, if you are not so sure what happened, you may be a little bit scared or reluctant to share because, comparison and things like that.
Yeah.
But if there are people who can meet you face to face like this and talk about that, that's great.
Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things is, yeah, the fear or whatever trepidation of sharing what's happened, right? Because there could be a stigma, or maybe it's not the right experience, right?
Maybe not right people to share.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I think that's like I've encountered people, saying like, oh, is it not, maybe it's not the right experience, right? It doesn't meet up to this person's written standards or whatever. And so that can lead to the not wanting to share what has happened. And I think in the open discussion, and because I host another meetup called Shift Integrate Support, where over the years, I've become increasingly aware of, trying to say, it's okay. We don't have to be precise, right? We don't have to match this person's awakening. It's not wrong. There's whatever is experienced, it's not the wrong experience. And I think that is a really important thing to reinforce, because, the thing about doubt, right? I think you were talking with Christiane during your podcast with her about, that's like one of the early fetters, right? The doubt that comes up. And I think that is like something that's there. There's the doubt, like, oh, is my experience correct? And so that can lead to not wanting to share on these other, even in meetings, but as a host, one can say, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to worry about being wrong. Just share what's coming up. And I tend to be very silly in the meetups I host, just because I think, I don't know, it's okay to be serious, but it's also okay to be silly in these states.
I agree, because with that lightness, there is also humor, and you can't really take that illusion so serious anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I make a joke about the non-dual police, right? If someone comes in and is trying to police some way of making light, it's like, hey, we don't have to judge each other's experiences, because we can just learn from them. We can be open to them. And one of the most interesting things that I've witnessed in this community is someone will share an experience, and sometimes people will be like, that's interesting. That's never happened here. And then weeks later, someone will share that experience. It'll be a totally different person. It'll be like, oh yeah, I suddenly started seeing rainbows around lights or whatever. It's just all these things, but it's like, there seems to be a power of sharing experience. Like, even if it's okay, I don't think that's ever happened here. And then all of a sudden, some form of deepening will emerge in others, which I think
like synchronization kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like the clocks with the pendulums, they synchronize when they're together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. So it is really a fascinating thing. And I think it seemingly is quite helpful for people. So
I'll be sending a lot of people to the community.
That's wonderful. Oh, we're so grateful. Yeah. Again,
I'll organize a train.
That's good. Yes. Send them to Patty. She'll let them in. They can come to the open discussion on Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, if they like silliness, because it's mostly very silly.
That's great. Let me let my cat in, because he's crying.
Oh no, let the cat in. Yes. Oh, so cute.
Very vocal, talks a lot.
Yes, I used to have a Siamese. She was around for 19 years, 18 years, and she was very, very vocal. So yeah, it's fun because people come, people's pets come to our meetups. It's so much fun. Like, we have the cats running, going over the camera, get like a little tail going back and forth. We have the dogs running around in the background. So yeah, it's very, very fun. I think I always want to start a pets meetup where we just have our pets.
What a great idea for a meetup.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'll be
'cause I
here
think
with 5 cats. I mean,
no,
bear.
nice. You got 5 cats. That's amazing.
I'm turning into a crazy cat lady.
Oh. Yeah, so I will be on that path very soon as I That's great. Yeah, I think because it just feel like there's something about pets that help with the deepening process. If one is open, if there's an openness to the pets, I don't know. There's something that they're, I don't know. There's like, seems like there's a deep teaching there. I feel like there was, because my Siamese cat, she was very ill the last year of her life. Like she was formerly very vibrant, energetic, bouncing off the walls. But she became very ill and her body was kind of slowly, yeah, degenerating, I guess. But it was such an opportunity with her because it felt like the non-duality, the merging, the oneness was like just went off the charts in a whole different way. Just being her human, extension of her body, right? Because she couldn't take herself to the litter box anymore. So I just did that. It was hard for her to get to her food. So I just picked her up and did that. And it was just like, it was just kind of a knowing of the signals and just going with it, it was really, really interesting to have that experience. And there's a lot of gratitude for that opportunity to just kind of like be her extension, deepen that oneness, which I guess, maybe people will find that silly, but I don't know. To me, it felt incredibly profound. So
Thank you.
Yeah. And then the wonderful thing is when she passed, there was a rainbow that happened over the apartment here. So I was like, oh, she achieved her rainbow body. That's great. She was a good little guru. So,
oh, bless her.
So yes, it would be wonderful to have. It's just such a great experience to have these new members coming through, these new people, these new participants.
Wonderful.
And perfectly okay. So yes, this is very exciting. I look very, very much forward. So we started doing like the little heart.
Yeah, we can. How is it? I forget. Sometimes it happens naturally, but
it's like
sometimes
that.
it doesn't.
Yeah. I don't have I have a non-Mac, but I just love because everyone in the meetup does this now. And so I just started doing it instead of this so much. I'm like, oh, just do a heart.
Let's do this.
Yeah. So that's another fun thing too, is that
sweet. So it sounds like a fun place to be.
It is very fun. Yeah. And it's just, again, I will just going over the list of meetings. I'm like, there's so much people are offering. And again, it's all volunteer. We're a 501c, so it's like a nonprofit, and donations just go to help support the website and paying for the community Zoom account, so it's not none of us profit, we're all volunteers. And it's just wonderful, like this innovation that people bring, they're whatever they've specialized. Like we have circling for finders. We have like vortex healing. We've got just so many different like beautiful offerings, just so if whatever people resonate with, they can just go to that meetup, which I don't know, I just find to be so amazing that it all emerged without us really efforting.
It is. What are you gonna do with it? Just run it.
Exactly. Although maybe, because I know Patty, she's retired, and so she does a lot, I think, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So maybe I'm not sure if she would say that it seemed to just happen without so much effort, but I think she does just experience flow, like this doing flow. And it's really wonderful to witness her she's just kind of like a high-speed train, just moving through the space. and things just apparently happen,
Ah,
which is very fun. So yeah, so I don't know if she would think it was without effort, but here it feels very much like this community just blossomed like a rose bush.
I usually ask my guests this one question, and I think you're gonna have interesting replies, many of them, since you're talking to so many people and seen it all by now. What is your best advice for a seeker? Like somebody that is looking for a shift. From your perspective, what is the best thing?
So I would say, and this is just based on my own experience, whatever that means, is it felt like the shift began when I just surrendered. And this is probably not going to be the case for everyone, but I went from being a very strong doer, very in control of my destiny. And then I hit a wall and realized like that, no, this doing is not the answer. I'm just going to surrender. And that doesn't mean I just like laid around on the couch as like a lump. I just, with the surrender, there was just this letting go of, I know what's right. And there was just this openness that arose to this, just it felt like the universe was offering what was needed. Like after the surrender happened, the sense of like, okay, just letting go, just go into complete surrender. And I got the email about the Finders course. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll sign up. Okay, sure. And it felt like that was really the key here. And that's also been along the way, is just being open to what's arising, just being open to things that people suggest. And then also developing the discernment. It's like, well, I don't have to do everything that people suggest. It's just, but then getting that discernment of this thing feels right. This feels like it's in resonance. And so I think that was I felt like the most important thing that led to that big shift was just surrender and then openness and then the discernment to realize you don't have to do everything.
Thank you. That sounds right. You? Now the next question, how to surrender?
Yeah, it was just a complete letting go. It just felt like carrying around the sense of doership, like in my hands or something, and then just physically putting it down. Like, okay, this is just done. No more Amy doing.
Wow.
It's hard to describe because it's really just the sense of going from like, kind of like charging like a freight train, doing to, okay, now I'm lying on an inner tube on a river and just kind of on my back, just floating down the river and looking up at the sky and seeing all the beautiful things that are offered.
Wow. I'm curious, was there any fear to surrender, like losing something, or like many people experience fear because there is an idea that I will lose control or I will not be able to live my life or will have to abandon everything and go to a cave in whichever way.
Yeah.
Do you have any fear?
I have not. I don't seem to be able to feel fear anymore. Like there's a startle response that can happen, but the experience of fear and anxiety seems to have vanished. And I think it was only very small when that surrendering happened, because I think it was waning over decades. Because I think I had mentioned I was doing that emotional work, kind of diving into what is fear, what is anger, what is sadness. And I think by that point, because fear was the first one I had started when I was, 13 or something. It was very small. And so there was no fear at the surrender, because there was just the sense of like, I've been going at it this way, the complete doer, and look where it's led. Not a great result. I'll just do the total opposite of that, and I'm sure it'll work out fine. So I think there was no fear. And I think there was one experience along the way since the big shift where there was suddenly this realization of that I hadn't realized that thoughts aren't real. Which and it was because there had never been looked at. And all of a sudden there was like this like, oh, thoughts aren't real. Oh, and that felt like falling off a cliff. Like there was like a physical sensation of just like dropping. And so I think maybe that was a fear response for some reason, which was it was so bizarre. It's like, why did that happen just with this one stupid word, or like one stupid sentence, thoughts aren't real. So I think that was probably as close as I came to maybe a fear response in this process. But it was just such a silly response to that thought that it just made me laugh. Like I just laughed because it's like, why do I feel like I'm on a roller coaster, like falling off? So I think that was probably the closest to fear that happened. But yeah, it was also just very silly. And it's amazing. It feels like this process is just this successive series of very, very simple realizations, right? It's like, oh yeah, thoughts are just sensations. What's the difference between sensations and nothingness? No, there's nothing. There's no difference, right? It's like all the categories just collapse into one. But it's just like, but they're so simple. And because just even thinking about it, it's like, why did I ever think that thoughts were real? Like, it's just, but it seems so silly now. But back then it was like, whoa, like mind-blowing realization. That, I feel like maybe, other people are like, oh, of course, thoughts aren't real. That's so obvious.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's a trip. So you never stop tripping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it okay to ask you questions too? Yeah. So how was your experience of fear? Like, did you have it coming up around your shifts?
Yes, I had experience of going insane. I mean, the fear of going insane. Because for me, I found these Jed McKenna's books and I read them in 3 books in 13 days. So it was like a complete knockout to my belief system.
He's a great writer too. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I read that and that's how my process started of questioning.
Okay.
Because, I took one thing from there, that sit down, shut up, and figure out what is true until you know.
Yeah.
Well, I thought, this is it. I need to do that. Yeah. So I started looking through all these beliefs and whatever I found out that I knew was just something I repeat after people. Like I learned something, that means I took somebody else's words and put it in my system and said, okay, now I believe this too.
Yeah.
So just seeing that was huge opening. So I could not believe anything anymore. It was kind of, believe, if there's a lie in the middle, it's right there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So you did. Yeah. So his process was spiritual autolysis, right?
Right. So I did write like loads of papers, just writing stuff, what I thought was true, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that started. And at some point I kind of relaxed because what else can you do? Nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah.
And I went for holiday. And holiday was nice, but it was like huge floods there and people were dying, and not in a hotel, but in the country. It's like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know what will happen. Things are happening, but I don't know what will happen. And somehow this led to curiosity, like what is going on? What is really going on? The Jed McKenna says the real self is no self. Okay, these are words, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
All right. And then I Googled Jed McKenna. I know I went on Facebook to look for Jed McKenna, but there was nothing there, just a couple posts by other people, and I followed one through, and I landed in a forum where they said there is no you look. I was like, oh, there's something here. There's no you look. Jed McKenna didn't tell me look. Yeah, but that was just so directly in the face. So I looked. But before I looked, I had this fear of going insane, because at that time I thought I'm not believing anything. I don't want to take a new belief, because I don't know what's going on. And then there somebody pointed out that, who would be to go insane? And that was just that one question that kind of dispelled that fear.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there was no Ilona running the show ever. Yeah. It's impossible.
That's amazing. I love that story. That's so awesome. Yeah. And because it feels like the things just present themselves, right? Like that forum. I don't know what it was like, but the forum is there and the question's there. And then it's like, that's the shift. And for me, it was like the email was there. It's like, that's the shift. Yeah, that's fascinating.
It took about 3 days for me to recognize what happened. That was this question, is the Ilona running the show? The mind stopped. And then there was, obviously not. Yeah. And then it was like, how I never questioned that before. It's just so insane not to question that, because it's like the core. But we just go along with this idea that was given to us and never ever looked at.
Yeah.
Unless somebody points out. That's why immediately I started pointing it out to other people, like, come on, everyone is looking for this, exactly this, because that's the answer to all the questions. I mean, if you are doing math, but there is no zero in the math, it wouldn't make sense. But here you find the zero. Here you go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also, it's interesting, the shift between like truth, right? Because I remember for a lot of years, I was like, truth, there is a truth. And I'm going to find it, right? Or I know it. And there's so many truths, like with capital T's. And I was so confident. And I think the idea of there is no truth, I think there was like a deep discomfort with that, like for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. But then with the surrender, it was like, that's actually okay if there's no truth. And so I think that's another, I think that's a great thing that for people who are seeking, it's like just what you did. It's just like, what is actually true? And it's okay if there is no truth. Because I don't know, that for me was a really profound way of deepening, was investigating, like, what are all these unseen things, these things I'm not noticing that I'm assuming are true, that I don't realize there's an assumption of truth. Mm-hmm. And just that process, it just feels like everything collapses into just one beyond that. So that's wonderful. And that's really cool that it was Jed McKenna, because I know early on in the community, like a lot of us were big Jed McKenna fans too. Like we all read his book and we talked about his book. So that's cool. If only you had taken the Finders course by mistake, and then you could have come and we could have talked about this for 8 years.
Well, it's another 8 years ahead, so we can still talk.
That's true. We can. There's no time like now. That's wonderful. Maybe you've already talked about this in earlier podcasts, but what motivated you to, or inspired, or how did this podcast arise?
Oh,
If
the
that's okay to
podcast.
ask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel and I was putting videos there, and somebody said, why don't you put the audio version? I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, just to put the audio version.
Yeah.
So I found the platform and I started just, the same thing that I put on video, put it on audio, and I got a name for it and started playing with that. It's been over a year, just over a year now.
That's
And
awesome.
it's good fun because I get to meet very interesting people and not just seekers. I love seekers, the people who are inquiring, but it's also interesting to see and meet people who are other people like me, like you, helping them, like in various ways, from various mediums. And so it's kind of balancing for me now. Every day I work with people who are looking for something and supporting them emotionally in whichever way they need to be met. But I also get to speak to other people who are kind of like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that you'd had Angelo DeLulo, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's come through our core sessions as well.
Yeah, I had a look through the list of people who were in your community. It was like quite impressive. Nice job. Nice job.
Yes. Yes. Well, likewise. Yeah, and I guess one thing is, it's like post shift. That's what we're there for, right? People who are post whatever shift has happened. But the reason why we have core sessions in Perfectly Okay was actually an initiative started by John Conaway, who has since passed. But he was, because we had people who were still seekers in the community. And he wanted to start a program that would support seekers and try to help speed them along the path as much as possible. And so that's why we have core sessions.
I see.
Because we started
the Liberation Unleashed.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Because we wanted to be able to, we had our community, but we wanted to connect people with other communities and other teachers with these methods that might help them to get that fundamental shift that they were seeking. So I guess people who are seekers are also welcome to join, because they can get support in other ways, through our core sessions, and helping them, maybe find a new tool that might be useful to them. So everyone...
there are really three places there: before the shift, during the shift, after the shift, right?
Yes, exactly.
One needs to be ready for the shift. So whatever steps need to be taken or worked through, it's great to support people there. And when there is a shift, it may take a week, a day, or maybe a year or longer. It all depends on what people come from and how they work. So we are at that step at Liberation Unleashed, really just
so awesome.
pointing through all these illusions, so that everyone can sit down and find the truth for themselves.
Yes.
And then you are here, the aftercare. I'll call aftercare, deepening.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so wonderful. And it's cool because so it seems like you are teaching and supporting in the method that helped you shift. Is that correct? Or have you modified it since shifting?
How to say, as a community in the beginning, we worked out what works, precisely what works, which questions work. Because the key is to look for yourself. It's like nobody else can do that for you. You have to know that you need to look, but then how you look and where you look. It's just to say look, it doesn't mean anything. So we found a way how to point by exercises, by questioning particular places. And also, there is always fear, mostly always fear. very few people don't have fear.
Yeah.
And there are always expectations, like what this awakening would be like. Oh, somebody said this and now it's not like that, working through all these expectations, also resistances.
Yeah.
And when you know how to navigate through all of that, then, seeing happens, finding happens, exploring continues.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds like you kind of had the seed and then it germinated, right? When you kind of honed it and made it to something that's extremely effective for folks.
Sounds like it. I'm not so sure about now because I haven't been on a forum for a long time as I moved into the Zoom, face-to-face guiding. I'm still working with people every day, but in a different platform. So sometimes we have maybe 20 people waiting for a guide because all guides are volunteers as well. It's just the platform is typing. You get a question, you go home and you reply when you know the answer. to get a new question. So we just give people questions.
Yeah.
And then they work it out and come back and until it's over.
Yeah. Then so now with your guiding, it's like in real time, I guess, whatever that means, right?
Yeah,
because you're doing it through Zoom with people. And so, so you're asking the questions.
Yeah.
And then it's whatever's coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. 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 Did it feel like, it's sorry to ask so many questions, but did it feel like a smooth flow from the forum to Zoom, or was it adjustments?
Yeah, you just grow into it.
Yeah.
You start little and then grow into it. My other cat is singing songs.
Okay. All the cats want to come and join the Zoom meeting.
They do.
Yeah. So that seems like that's maybe a more common experience, right? Where it just seems like things just kind of emerge.
They just happen.
Yeah.
I didn't plan.
Yeah.
I just watch what's unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like that is a beautiful part of the deepening process as well. Right. And that is the surrender, even if there's no one there to surrender. Right. Because it feels like with the open discussion, it's like truly open. There's like a few little guidelines just that are more historically based. But it's just being open to whatever people are bringing to the discussion. And we can have, very like serious topics to extremely silly topics and just everywhere in between. And it feels like that is such a vital part of practice now. It's just being open to whatever is arising. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yes. And it just, it does. It's amazing how things just emerge. So
like this, our conversation now. I
exactly.
think a lot of good things are going to come out of it.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes. Well, it is. It's wonderful that, I don't know, that this platform exists, that we can talk across 11-hour time difference. Right?
It's incredible.
And talk about nothing for however long, an hour.
I think we covered very serious topics, like where to go when you need support, where you go when you need some fun with other people who are awakening.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And what's with all these cats?
Yes, exactly. Oh, they are the best part.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I really enjoyed this, and I'm sure I'll see you again.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yes, come to meetups, have your people come. We will send people your way. It'll be synergistic. So
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you again for the invitation. It was wonderful to interact with you
and this time. Thank you everyone for watching. And now you know where to go. It's perfectly okay.org, right?
Yes.org. Yes.
Yes.org. And we'll see you there. Thanks.
Exactly.
Bye.